it going, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Scales and Tails, your favorite swimbait podcast, episode 179. I cannot believe we're at 179. I know I say that every couple episodes, but almost 180 episodes, absolutely insane. Almost to 200 episodes, which is even crazier. We're recording this like probably a month and a half when you guys listen to this. This is like middle of February that we're recording this, so just keep that in mind. We're just going to be talking about some stuff, and I'm going to be referencing the weather, I'm sure, a little bit throughout the show. So don't think that you're listening to this in April and we're having some crazy winter storms or anything. This is what we're talking about currently, and you guys are just listening to it way after the fact. But anyway, we're joined by a guy all the way down there in beautiful, the Peach State, Georgia, where the Masters are, where they grow peaches, where they do all sorts. The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead happened there, guys, if you can believe that or not. But we were talking to Hunter all the way down there in Georgia, and as always, before we get to know Hunter too much, we're gonna start out the episode like we normally do with these new icebreakers that we've been doing. So Hunter, we're getting ready. We're gonna go fish together in the morning, and we're getting the boat around, or getting the rods and reels around tonight. And as always, you forget something, or we got to stop at the gas station on the way to the spot tomorrow morning. What are the necessities? What are the go tos that you're getting no matter what, whenever we stop?
Man, I've been addicted to the Ghost Creamsicle energy drink.
Okay.
So I always grab one of those, and the it's a bar called the Kind Bar. They come in like a few different like
Oh,
variety of
yeah.
flavors,
Yep.
but I love the cranberry almond and then the caramel almond are like my go-to. So like that creamsicle with a little bit of like salty is just like the perfect. Like I have to have that every time.
Dude, cranberry almond, I haven't seen that flavor, but dude, that sounds freaking good. I'm a big cranberry guy and I like almond too, and that sounds pretty damn good.
If I'm going to the store later on, I'll definitely send you a picture of what they look like,
Yeah.
and definitely, dude, you got to try it. It's amazing.
Damn, dude, that sounds really, really good. You are like only the second or third guy who has mentioned an energy drink, and actually the first person who's like mentioned a granola bar. So like how I said, none of these like previous episodes have been kind of posted yet, so nobody really knows. Well, nobody
Yeah.
knows while you and I are talking about this. Like the top things are always like gas station coffee, and then like jerky is a big one, and then the other one that a couple people have said now are Cheez-Its. Those are like the two main things. So to hear a granola bar, I respect the granola bar. I'm a Cliff Bar guy. Like we're stopping, I'm usually grabbing a Cliff Bar, like the white chocolate macadamia nut. But dude, they're like $5 a
Oh, that
piece
is top
now.
tier.
Yeah, dude, they're like $5 a piece now. I used to be able to grab two for like $6, and now, man, I grab one and I call it a day after that.
No, man, I trust me, I know. I used to love to get the Cliff Bars, and then I was just like, $5. No, man, I'm good. I'll
Yeah.
stick to my kind because I think I can get two kinds for like five. I think it's like 5.49 or something like that here.
Yeah, dude, that's absolutely yeah. That's a deal breaker right there, man. And then, as always, the second question we try to gear a little bit more towards the guest. And so, dude, I don't know how long you've been listening to the show, and I don't know how long the person who is currently listening to the this episode right now has been viewing Scales and Tails. But, dude, I will take you back to like the first like 50 episodes when I would sit in my apartment and I would just get absolutely buzzed and record with random, or not random people, but record with guests. And dude, there's like, if you scroll back far enough, there's like 4 hour episodes where we're just like buzzed, just having a good time. But the topic of discussion that always comes up, and like even the first couple months of all my memes that I was posting on Friday all had to do with the precious bowfin or dogfish, whatever you guys want to call them. And you being in Georgia, I know there's some absolutely big bowfin down there. And so my question for you, I obviously follow you and stuff, so I've seen some of your pictures. But my question for you is, do you love and respect the bowfin as much as you do bass? Because they get massive down there and they're just a super sick fish. And I have to know, being that the fishing for them is like so crazy down there.
I do respect them like 100%, dude. Like it's not there's no other like bite and fight that I can compare that with. Like, I can honestly sit here and say that, yeah, catching bowfin is probably like catching like, you know, a 30-inch snook to some, and like some
Yeah.
guys down in Florida. It's kind of like like we like to finesse fish for them. So we like to throw Nico rigs. We like to throw like shaky heads for them. So just sitting there and throwing a Nico rig is just like a dude throwing like an eighth ounce or a quarter ounce jig head with a little paddle tail sweeping for a snook, and then they just feel that light thump. I mean, they're phenomenal creatures, man. I love them. I think my first time catching one was maybe, I want to say about 2 years ago.
Mm.
And those have been like one of my baits that are one of my favorite fish to target during like the dead of the winter or even like the summertime on like a buzz bait or like a frog, which in a river, they absolutely destroy a buzz bait and a frog.
Dude, that is so sick. Do your males get super like that fluorescent green in the springtime when they're spawning?
See, I don't really target them in the springtime.
Okay.
A lot of the times during the springtime, I'll, I'm probably either working nonstop or I'm literally out swim baiting
Mm.
every chance that I can get.
Mhm.
But I may have to try that though this year.
Dude, it is crazy. So it's probably maybe around this time or like a couple weeks for you would be like the same kind of weather period we had up here. But dude, early spring we got on a crazy K9 bite for those bowfin off on one of these jetty pier riprap areas we have. Dude, I mean, they're coming up and they're just smashing the K9, trying to eat the TK, trying to eat the mini slammer. Like, dude, it was such a blast. Like we had never, like we'd been fishing for them in a long time, and obviously people who listen to the show like have heard this story a handful of times and are rolling their eyes right now. But dude, they're just to cut it short, just absolutely an amazing fish, super fun fish, pound for pound fight, absolutely insane, especially on light gear like you were mentioning, and they just super badass fish. And there for a while, like dude, I have a sticker design of me riding a bowfin, and I think it's like bowfin rodeo or something like that. Was probably like 2 years
Oh,
ago
dude.
now, dude. Just a
I
freaking just a beautiful fish. But I know that you have caught some and have posted some, so I felt like that was a good icebreader to ask and kind of a throwback for the OG listeners. But Hunter, man, we gotta kind of learn who you are a little bit more. We've broken the ice. We kind of learned your essentials, like what type of guy you are with your gas station pickups there. But now we kind of gonna do the deep dive here and get to learn you on more of a personal level, my man. So I guess the question that we always ask everybody that kind of sets the stage for the first handful of questions I'll ask you, and obviously sets the stage for the rest of the episode is how. So being in Georgia, how did you get into fishing down there, man? Was it like the classic, mom or dad or uncle took me out fishing for the first time and it just got hooked, caught a bluegill and stuck with it, or kind of what was it for you that got you going?
there's three different, memorable times that kind of like got me like either started fishing or like really back into fishing and like fishing hard. Of course, starting out fishing back home in Georgia, I started off with my granddad when I want to say I was about like 4 years old or so. And we had this place right down the road called Pike Ponds. I'm never gonna forget it in little old Warner Robins, Georgia. For all of my Georgia people that may be listening, they probably know this area for sure. Um, but me and him used to go out there. They had a pond like designated for catfish.
Hmm.
They had one designated for crappie, bluegill, bass, and then they had one in the way back that had nothing but lily pads. And they were like, "Yes, this is our designated like trophy bass pond." But the only thing is that you got to worry about gators and lily pads. So that's
Mm.
kind of where like everything started. I want to say like bass fishing, I caught my first bass with my granddad on a on a Transformers fishing rod, like a little kitty combo, and that got me so hyped, and that was honestly like my gateway to wanting to fish more. And then of course, catching catfish, but it was just something about bass fishing. Um, then over time, I moved out of Georgia to North Carolina to, Virginia, back to Georgia, North Carolina. I've been kind of like back and forth between a whole bunch of different states. Like now I'm currently back in North Carolina, but I want to say my eighth, ninth grade year, uh, I ended up having some neighbors move into my neighborhood in North Carolina, and they had two sons. And what I will say, it is a very touchy subject because, like one of the guys, he did pass away. That was like a little brother to me. So,
Yeah.
uh, you know, Bruce and your family, if you do listen to this, long live Chase. That will forever be a little brother to me. Um, and I love y'all dearly. And thank y'all for everything, and thank y'all for the motivation that y'all two have given me to get to this level for sure. But me, Bruce, and Chase, they had a pond like in the woods behind our house, and every day we used to go out there and we used to catch flyers, bluegill, bass, and then that's all we did. We then traveled to this pond on Fort Bragg, or Fort Liberty, but uh, and I think this is like my first time throwing a spinner bait, and
Mm,
it was just some dollar, like a dollar, $2 spinner bait from Walmart that I got, and I ended up catching like at the time, it seemed like a giant, but it was probably like four and a half, five, and I'm like, we're going crazy because I thought I had a log because it
yeah.
was just dragging through the water. There was no head shakes, no jumping until we pulled it up. But that kind of like got me back into it. And then, with me now, with my job, I met a guy who he's my manager, and he asked me, I want to say it was a year or so after I had started working. He was like, "Hey man, did you want to come out and fish a couple of like the BFLs and everything like that with him?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." Never fished a tournament a day in my life. Um, and he kind of, he taught me everything that I really needed to know about tournament fishing, how to, read weather changes, read um, like the depth finder,
Mm-hmm.
understanding why fish may be set up here and here. So that's kind of like how like everything started for me. So it was kind of like the classic that then kind of led into like a more uh like a lifetime goal. Like I have something that like I live for to continue on a legacy. My granddad, he doesn't fish as much anymore.
Yeah.
So everything that I'm doing now and trying to do now, I do it all for him, do it all for my family.
Heck
And
yeah,
of
dude.
course, Lord the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. So, dang. So, yeah, you kind of, I mean, moving around, like you said, Georgia, North Carolina, a little bit of Virginia and stuff too. Like, you got to experience, like, or you get to experience, like, some true. I mean, when I think of those couple states, I consider that like some true Southern fishing. Another state like Alabama, maybe, or Mississippi, Kentucky, like that is like some real heart of the South fishing down there. Have you, or I guess, did you ever at the time, like, like when you were, in Virginia or in North Carolina, you're like, oh man, I wish I was just back in Georgia so I could fish there. Like, were you ever picky and choosy on where you were at and kind of just like, oh man, I wish I was here instead? Or was it just go with the flow and kind of catching fish wherever?
It as of right now, like right now as we speak, it's been kind of hard, because it's like a lot of the places that I was fishing back home in Georgia, when they were producing, they'd produce, and it's like there's never been really a time where I was like, yeah, I want to go back to North Carolina or I want to go back to Virginia. It's just like I know for a fact that if I was back home, I know I can catch fish here. If I, and I'm like, well, I can kind of do the same thing here in the Carolinas too. It's just I certain ways that I like to fish in Georgia are a lot different from the ways I like to fish here in the Carolinas.
Hmm. Right, right. Is there, do you have a lot of access to water in there, in the Carolinas, like uh, relative to Georgia? Like I know some states have, like Florida, obviously, you've got a gajillion places to fish. Whereas some spots like around like big towns and stuff, there's like just not many fishing options. So where you're at now, is there like a pretty decent like places to fish, I guess, essentially?
Oh yeah, there's tons of places to fish here. I'm maybe about 2 hours from Lake Norman. Um, I'm about an hour. I'm about to say an hour and 10, hour 20 from Jordan Lake, Sharon Harris Falls. I'm about like an hour and I want to say about an hour and 30 from Lake Waccamaw, hour 20 from Tabor. Like I have tons of like huge lakes to fish. And then I have like I have two lakes that I won't speak about because those are some hidden gems where I do like a lot of my content, or I get a lot of my content from. And I figured out a insane pattern at both of these lakes that I don't really want a lot of people to know about. But I have tons of water out here to fish. Yeah, I remember you had my buddy Alex
Yeah.
actually
Yep.
on a podcast, and I was actually gonna go try to fish with him this weekend or this week, but he's currently busy right now, so I think I'm gonna wait till next weekend to shoot up to Charlotte and go fish Norman with him and Yorkie.
Heck yeah, dude. That'll be freaking awesome, man. I saw that fish you posted yesterday on the nugget. Dude, that thing killed that bait.
Dude, so like whenever I got the nugget, it was insane because I was like, I'm not really a finesse glide type of person. Like I don't know how to work this. I don't know
Uh-huh.
what rod I need to use. So, I talked to York and he was like, yeah, man, like a jerkbait rod or like even like a 7-1 medium heavy. So I I used my jerkbait rod and I went out to one of my little honey holes and I casted the nugget right over top of a piece of isolated grass. And before I can even like work the bait, the fish like completely snatched the rod out of my hand.
Damn,
And I
dude.
was like, there's no way this just happened.
Yeah. Ah, dude.
And then it happened again and again and again. So that's just how I've been fishing the nugget is just over top of isolated pieces of grass with schools of fish on them.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Damn, that's crazy. So I guess since we're talking about it, we'll get into that portion of things. So, well, I guess you talked about fishing like the opens and stuff, and that's something that usually guys like or this is just obviously like a gross stereotype, but I feel like when guys get into tournament fishing, that's what they do is they tournament fish and they tournament fish all the time. Even if they don't have boats, they'll fish all the opens and they fish all the, all the club tournaments, but get a buddy with a boat and everything like that. But from what I know, you just kind of like do the content side of things, right? Do you still fish a lot of tournaments, or is that something that you did for a year or so and then just kind of realized that fishing for fun or like fishing for filming and fishing is kind of more so your passion.
So I fished tournaments, I want to say about 3 years, 3 or 4 years. Um, and I liked it. The like 2019 or like 2020 is kind of actually, yeah, 4 years because I started in 2020 and stopped in 2024. Um, I was fishing like the opens, the BFLs, like the little cat trails and everything like that here in the Carolinas. And then I ventured out and got into kayak fishing in 2021 and started fishing like some of the local trails. The CKA, the CCKF, things like that, Queen City. And I then took it from there to the next level and started fishing, national events. So Hobie, KBF, Bassmaster, and it's fun. Like, yeah, I have an eighth place finish at Chickamauga. I think I have like a seventh place finish at the Potomac River. Like, it's nice and all to say that you have like some top 10 finishes or like top five or even you won some, but it didn't dawn on me until last year in 2024 in like January when we went down to the Harris Chain and this is like the opening Bassmaster kayak series. This is like
Mhm.
event number one. And it was like day one, so it was Saturday, and it was like the last 10 minutes of the tournament, man. And I was already sitting in like first place that day. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna screw around and fish for the last 10 minutes. And then, I didn't know that I was gonna hook into the fish of like a lifetime. I ended up catching a 1022, my first double digit
Damn.
ever, and 20 years of fishing. Was 1022 on a 6 cents finesse ball head jig with their in a like PB&J color with like a green pumpkin trailer. And
Hmm.
after that, man, I was like, I don't want to fish tournaments, man. It is too nerve wracking. I like I like just being able to travel to all of these different places and just experience, the one how everyone is like so, oh, like, yeah, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do here. But you go out to this lake and you figure out your own pattern that completely destroyed them that you'd never think of. I just like going out there, man. It's just fun. I just like the honestly the relaxation of it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
You
dude.
know,
It's
yeah.
man, tournament fishing is just its own thing, and dude. There's not a lot of people who can get down with tournament fishing. Like dude. There's just so much stress behind it.
And I feel like a lot of people just get caught up into it. They see everyone else doing it, they want to hop onto the wagon, but they're not sitting here thinking about calculating up, you know, tournament fees, equipment, license, they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking that they can just go hop. And it's like, don't get me wrong. I feel like if you've never fished a tournament, I swear you should at least fish like one or two of like some local tournaments in like your state. It will be the best feeling in the world, especially if you catch a fish or a few fish or even catch a limit.
Hmm.
It's amazing. But, if you just like to fish for fun and just stick with doing that. No need to be a follower, be a leader. Just start your own thing.
Yeah, yeah, dude. My thing with tournament fishing is like I'll catch like decent fish, and like I just think the whole day like are these the fish that I need? Do I need to catch like one more bigger fish? Should I already have a limit by now? And then that just like I honestly think that makes you worse off because you're just trying to overthink everything while you're still trying to fish for the next 6 hours, and you're just getting inside your head, and it just kind of it doesn't vibe well with the whole thing that's going on. But so you did it for like 3, 4 years, dude. That's kind of crazy. I was not guessing that long.
Yeah, it was fun. Like, don't get me wrong, I traveled a lot of places. I traveled to Tennessee. Uh, I think we were in Maryland on the Potomac side of Maryland.
Mm,
Um, you know, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina. I mean, we traveled a lot, and over time, it does a big number on you, or it takes a big toll on you because you got to sit there, you got to calculate. All right, cool. Well, I have my adult bills that I have to pay for. Now I also have these hobby bills that I like to pay for.
yep.
Um, and I had me personally, I just felt like I just needed to stop. I didn't really feel like I was fishing at my full potential because I was too busy trying to put together patterns that I've heard worked here instead of just going out and learning and fishing like how I usually would.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't, I really didn't find any interest in that anymore. It was kind of getting a little boring, a little frustrating. So, like I said, I completely stopped, and then I ended up having to purchase a new vehicle. So I was like, yeah, there's no point in me being able to fish because with with payments like that, it's insane nowadays.
Yeah, dude, exactly. So when you kind of broke down and decided, hey, maybe not necessarily that this isn't for me, but this isn't for me right now. Life's going in a different direction. Did you kind of decide that obviously you decided like you wanted to keep fishing and stuff, but was there any like inclination of what you wanted to do next exactly? Like, did you want to, I don't know, because I feel like breaking down people's like, quote unquote, like fishing careers, like some guys get into tournament fishing and then they're like, ah, no, tournaments aren't for me. And then they like, dude, there's guys who get super deep into like balsa crankbait fishing. They have a gajillion dollars worth of balsa crankbaits. You know, obviously the swim bait things, or guys get super big into like finesse fishing. And that's how they catch their fish for the rest of their lives. Like, did you have any insight of what you wanted to do outside of the tournament fishing scene? Like even make content or anything like that?
Of course, without, besides tournament fishing, really my main career was like, or my main mindset when it came to like a fishing career was really just, you know, going out and fishing every lake that I possibly could in the state of North Carolina and go out there and learn that lake and try to at least catch a double digit out of each one or at least a trophy caliber size fish. I'm
Hmm.
still, and that's currently my goal for 2025. Right now it's a little iffy because of how the weather's been playing out, but my goal really has been to travel to different lakes and just either one, find a trophy size fish out of each lake or potentially try to break the lake records on each of these lakes that I go to.
Yeah, right.
Um, I have a few kind of, techniques that I kind of want to like use, but I've over time, I sat and I started to like master a certain style of fishing, which was like finesse fishing.
Hmm.
Um, and then like once it became to the point where I know for a fact that any lake that I go to, I can kind of pick apart certain areas that I think will hold fish or I know will hold fish. And instead of sitting here and just throwing just standard conventional, I'd try to go on a little bit more finesse side of things, like the like finesse jigs, drop shots, even a Nico rig. I don't even throw a Ned rig, but I started throwing a Ned rig heavy last year.
Yeah.
And it's actually just like what people say. It's like if you can't catch a fish on a Ned rig or a wacky rig, there's a problem. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I for a long time I couldn't. But once I mastered finesse fishing, I was like, okay, cool. This is easy. I can pick up the pixie stick like everyone likes to call it and
Right.
go catch
Yeah.
fish. Of course, if need be. I don't know why everyone hates on the spinning rod. It's useful at sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, dude. I mean, I haven't picked up a spinning rod in quite some time, but it's still like we'll go out to Lake St. Clair and I'll have like a 734 rod and I'll tie on like a half ounce ball, like just literally a lead ball jig, unpainted with like a 4 inch Kitech, and dude, I'll just rail on smallmouth, and that's like kind of, is like basic and kind of is like beginner as I'll get, because I don't do it very often, but still, like, I do that and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so much freaking fun. Like, I should do this, I should be doing this all the time, but I only do it when I go over to St. Clair. But it's just like, wow, this is a blast. It I'm like, man, maybe I really should set the swim baits down a lot more than I already do and just do this, like fish a worm, like Marshall always says, or fish these Kitechs, or literally anything, like fish a frog or flip, whatever it may be. Like, myself and I think a lot of other guys get just like super sucked into the swim bait only thing, and it's not even from a standpoint of like, oh, the pixie stick's stupid, I'm not going to pick up a spinning rod, but it's more so like, if I keep this thing in my hands, like, I've got to catch a big fish, or I've got to see a big fish, and that's just maybe not necessarily the right mentality every single day.
Oh yeah, I mean that was like me today, man. I like I said, I threw the Metro for majority of the day today, and I lost three of them on there. And I started throwing a spinnerbait around. I mean, the wind was blowing at least 20, 25, and I'm like, dude, it's so windy. The sun's shining. There's a little bit of shade lines here. Like, let me just. There's some isolated like pieces of like sticks that are sticking out of the water in these certain on like certain stretches or on like certain points. Let me just cast and see nothing. And I was like, okay, so circling back around, heading towards the ramp to leave today. I picked I picked the Metro up and I started casting at those same exact spots, and that's where I was, I was getting my bites. And I'm just like, it's hard to kind of sit here and not throw the swim baits around when they obviously want them and they don't want your conventional.
Mhm.
But dude, I get sucked up into it, man. I'm not gonna lie, it is very frustrating. Like I definitely this year I will say that I'll be putting down the swim baits a little bit more than usual than I want, or a little bit more than I typically would. And getting back into conventional, I definitely think I need to do that this year. I've started fish. I was throwing swim baits for like 2 years straight, man.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
time to lighten up a little bit.
right, right. And I guess we kind of skipped over it a little bit, but how did you like directly get into swim baits? Like what was your first experience kind of being on like that southern east coast? Like what was your first experience with the swim baits and kind of how did that start it off for you?
All right, so there's this dude named Eli that I fish with. Um, One day he came into work, or he came into my job, and this was when I first started, and he was like, "Hey, do y'all have any S waivers?" And I'm looking at him, I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was like River to Sea S waiver 178. I was like, "Dude, I don't even know what an S waiver is. I've never heard of that." I was like, is that some form of like jerk bait or something?" I mean, it was funny, and then he was like, "Dude, do you even fish?" And that's kind of like how me and him clicked, and like ever since then, we've been close. Um, and then as we like started fishing together more, he like was telling me about swim baits. And then he gave me my first swim bait he gave me was a S waiver, and I want to say it was the Warden color, if I'm not mistaken. It was that he gave me a S waiver 200 in a Warden color, and then uh my next two purchases for swim baits was the Jackal Gantro
Yep.
Junior, and then the 6 inch Flow Glider 130. And we went out to one spot, and I threw the Flow Glider 130 for an hour and 45 minutes. I'm never going to forget it because that was the longest that I've ever had a bait in my hand where I'm having to consistently like pay attention to every little detail on how I'm fishing this. And then I caught one maybe I say within like 5 feet from the bank. And I was so hyped after that. And I was hooked from there.
Hmm.
And then he introduced me to Alex. And then between those two right there, it just my mind kind of exploded on like all of the different types of like different brands, different actions, everything, different rods. And then from there it's been hell on wheels from there. I have a slight addiction ever since then now.
Right, right. So, dude, that's crazy. It's also funny. Did you guys have the S waivers in stock when Elijah came up and was asking for them?
No, we've never carried the S waivers. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, what are you talking about the S waiver, dude? I've never seen them in the store ever. Because I used to walk through every aisle every day learning something. Because, like I said, Wyatt, whenever I was fishing the BFLs with him, he was kind of like my mentor on how to break down tournament fishing, break down lakes and everything, different types of lures. My granddad was like fishing 101.
Yep.
So like working with Wyatt, he was like teaching me things as I go. So each day I'd walk down the aisles and learn something different. And I was like, S waivers. No, dude, we don't have those.
Damn, that's crazy. It's crazy that a bait shop, a bait retailer doesn't have those, or at the time didn't have those in the South. Because I feel like there's like a couple standards that they carry around down there. Like maybe a mag draft, maybe the Berkeley stuff, like the S waiver, and then like maybe some Savage Gear stuff. I feel like that's like the roundabout stuff you'd usually find at a like big box to like normal mom and pop's bait shop unless you go to like some crazy tackle shop. But I feel like a lot of the places down there, like in Alabama and in Florida, like the couple of what are the big ones down there? Big sporting goods store. I can't even remember the name of it. It's
Oh,
it's
I know one of the big stores in Alabama is like Gunnersville Tackle and Outdoors, like GTO.
uh,
Um,
it's like a
it's-
big it's like a Dick's like a big box store like that. I cannot remember the name of it though. But anyway, like I've always noticed when I go down there, those places like they're on the fringe of having swim baits. Like they'll have like two S Waver 168s that are covered in dust. Nobody hasn't bought in 10 years. But outside of that,
yeah,
there's nothing else. And like you said, maybe like the six lens like Flow Glide or some there's like a couple places that are starting to carry stuff now, but it's still not a common thing at all, which is kind of crazy.
it's not. Of course, like box stores like that, they're not really going to carry anything crazy. Um, but you start looking at a lot of these mom and pop shops now. Um, we have two stores here in the Carolina. I think one in Cherry Hill, one in Jacksonville, North Carolina. They're both carrying what is it, tater hogs now?
Yeah, yep.
And I was like, that's insane. I mean, granted, I can go drive the hour and a half to go get one, but I'm just
Mhm.
like, it's crazy like how now everything seems to be, it's like this is typical now, everyone should be throwing these. If not, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And that's
As
like
opposed to when I first started.
right. Yeah. And I'm surprised even in like Georgia, there's not a lot of tackle shops that carry Buka stuff. Because I feel like obviously being a Georgia guy who is like if anybody knows a garage bait builder, it's probably more so Buka than anybody, maybe Kyle or maybe like Working Class Zero and stuff. But I feel like if you pull
Yeah.
any guy off the bat or like any guy who's fishing or into fishing and you say, what is a bull shad? They say, oh, it's a swim bait or it's like a shad swim bait or something like that. Like everybody has the roundabout idea of what a bull shad bait is. So I'm surprised that they're not like super abundant in like every tackle shop in Georgia.
I honestly think it's really just because of the just because of the fact that like the market,
Yeah.
like there's tons of people out here that will buy them, but the companies themselves they probably wouldn't buy them to put in their store because they feel like they're just gonna sit there and collect dust until like the right few people come along and they're like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, like I'll buy one or two. I think they're afraid of taking that leap into into purchasing like that for the company to try out and see how it'll work. That's just my thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to see, and that's what I was gonna ask you. Is like, is Buka a big brand that like a lot of people like talk about, know, or even carry down there, and like in your area, like Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, like is that a decently easy bait to find at a retail or like a niche retail store?
So like when it comes to like Buka, like actual Mike Buka himself, like the bullshit swim baits, like the wide glide, um the wide glides, the what is it, the trick shots, trick
The
gills. You don't
yeah.
hear a lot of people like talking about that. Of course, you're gonna hear them talking about, the bullshit swim baits, a little like bullshit ones that you can get from like Academy and things like that. You'll hear them talk about that, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about um, the actual true resin baits. And I think it's because a lot of people are, they're secretive. They don't want anyone and everyone to know about it.
Hmm.
Now, here in the Carolinas, we have like fishing expos all the time. And it just seems like Mike Buka loves to be here.
Right.
Um, so it's like, you have the one at the what is it, the Angler's Choice that they host up there in Hendersonville, or I think that's what it is, basically on
Yeah.
the
Yep. Yeah.
border of Virginia, North Carolina. And then you have the fishing expo they do at the beginning of the year in the Raleigh area. Um, and I mean, it's just you hear about it a lot more around in the Carolinas that you do back home in Georgia. Because when I went back home to Georgia and started talking to a few guys down there um, about swim bait fishing, I was like, yeah, I'm just, tossing around the bullshit. They're like, Oh, you're talking about the one like from like Academy? I was like, no.
Like the real, like the real version one.
Like the real bullshit. They're like, I've never seen that. Can I see it? And they're like, how much is this thing? And I think I traded mine, but I'm like retail. I think they're like 180 or something like that. And they were like, dude, I'm never paying this for a bait.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so now I know for a fact no one really knows. Like no one in like in the middle, like middle Georgia knows about it. But if you go like up north, like near, Lake Juliet, which is north
Hmm.
of Macon, and then of course you have like um Sinclair and everything like that, then or Saint and Lake Lanier and stuff like that, then yeah, everyone knows about swim baits there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which, dude, that's crazy to me. Have you, I'm asking you this because it's kind of around, it takes place pretty much in the area that you've kind of called home. Have you seen Southern trout eaters?
I have I so that's something that I watch or here and there.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Actually, I've been wanting to like buy a copy and give it away. Maybe this will be a good episode to do it with since we're talking about this. But dude, it is such a good film. I mean, relative, it is like a 20-year-old film, and there's a lot of, like banjo music in it. But it's like for what it is, like it's a really, really, really good video. I mean, dude, it's long and it's just like continuous cast to catch stuff, but it's good for what it is.
Yeah, like I mean it's true southern big bait fishing type deal, you know?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. It's not like perked up like with, fish finders or whatever it may be like or these guys are literally up in the mountains of Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, and they're just fishing these trout baits to catch these fish that eat trout or they were fishing the Mizuno rat and they were fishing the punker a little bit like and the bull shad
yeah.
even too in those videos. But like I don't know, I guess I watched those videos and I wonder what it would have been like to fish those spots back then, like around the time those guys were fishing. I'm like, I don't know, a couple of guys that I know that live down in that area, they're familiar with some of the lakes that those guys were fishing, and it's like they said that it's kind of just not anything like it used to be. Like it is so much different now. So I was gonna ask if you knew any of those lakes, but I wasn't sure if you were familiar with even the areas that those were filmed in.
I mean, I'm familiar with a few of them. Have I gotten to fish a lot of them? No. Um, but I mean, it's like fishing them with swim bait wise. Not really. I haven't really gotten a chance to go out there. Like I fished them before, yeah, but not with not with big baits. And just because it's not the same anymore like it used to be, I really feel like, well, are y'all still going out here with, trout style baits trying to catch these fish, or are you stepping out of your comfort zone and going, a little abnormal? I've fished lakes where, their primary forage is shad and bluegills. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me throw a trout bait all day and I'll catch like five or six on like the sly guy trout, you know? So even though they may not be the same, I really feel like if you just kind of step out of like that norm of just sitting there throwing,
That makes sense.
trout style glides or like creeping something across the bottom that looks like a trout, try to do a little something different, that's all it takes is just something just a tad bit different. Um, but this year I definitely will be going to a lot of those places and, seeing some things for or trying some things out on my own with some of the stuff that I have. I just gotta plan out a few trips like that. Probably see if some buddies want to come and we try to film some stuff out there and just enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say is like those spots. Once those videos came out, I know that those fish got hammered. This just got beat up sideways, all different types of ways. Does Georgia still stock trout? Do you know? Like, are some of the or even some of the lakes that you're around now, like, do any of those lakes get trout, or was that like kind of a natural trout population in those places?
I think well, so I'm not too sure on the stocking of trouts in Georgia too much anymore. Now I know there's a few lakes here in the Carolinas they stock with trout, as well as uh like their streams and stuff like that. But sometimes you or not streams, but like rivers or so, they stock with trouts, and of course, these rivers lead to lakes. But a lot of the times they do stock. They still do stock trout in some of the lakes here in the Carolinas. We have one up in Raleigh that they stock with trout. But what they do is they stock it in a small little what they call a trout pond for like the kids and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
But there's still like a stream that connects them to. And of course, during the spring, those trout are going to want to spawn. So you're trying to tell me that this one lake in particular that I'm not going to say the name of, you're trying to tell me that these trout aren't trying to cross this stream into the bigger lake thinking that it's some shallow water to spawn, and now they're in this big lake and
Hmm.
these bass aren't eating them. It's just, but they do still stock them here. I think they stock them. I think they stock them in the winter time, if I'm not mistaken, and then I think they have like a warm water stocking as well for some,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken, or
Yeah.
not really like extremely warm, but just kind of like your spring stocking. They have like a winter spring stocking, if I'm not mistaken.
Huh. So, man, that's I cannot believe that down south they put trout in those waters like that. Just feels like those trout are gonna boil to death down there.
Well, I mean, where they stock trout at, we're talking about waters that get down into like 80 to 100 plus feet of water, like
Okay.
Lake Fontana, Lake Lure, stuff like that, like lakes that get extremely deep.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I mean, even still, you stock them in Lake Fontana, they got to worry about bass, they got to worry about muskie. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, and I can't believe Georgia spends the money on that if that's such a big, such a big worry that there's all these predatory fish in these waters that they're because like Michigan, they will not, to my knowledge, they won't stock water that has like pike, muskie. Like there's only a couple key things that need to have a lake or there's key things that a lake needs to have to get trout here, and there's not many lakes who like kind of fall under that umbrella that they have predetermined. Which I understand. You don't want to fill up a lake with, we'll just say 1,000 trout costs like $10,000. You don't want to fill up, put $10,000 worth of bait, essentially bait, but food for some people, and have 90% of it get eaten by pike. Like that's not necessarily the best investment that you're going for. I can't imagine.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, there's no reason to do something like that. But one thing that I've noticed here in the Carolinas is that a lot of people are catching like certain species of fish, and they're transporting them to different lakes.
Oh,
Um, like even people who have them as pets. We had a guy out in Aberdeen throw a throw a piranha in one of our lakes here,
what the heck?
and they caught it. And of course, there was this whole like news article about it. It was insane. Like it's true. One of my lakes, I found out that years ago, people were taking fish out of this lake and transporting to another one in like big five. What was it, like the 50-gallon drums or something like that?
Yeah, yep.
They were literally just putting them in the water and leaving them there, catching fish, putting them in there, and then coming back at night and pulling it with their boat and taking it to a whole different lake, maybe 10 minutes down the road,
Dang.
and stocking that lake with them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm
Wow.
like, it's insane. Like, if anyone is like, oh, the fishing in the Carolina sucks. No, the fishing in the Carolina doesn't suck. It's just you just don't know what you're going to get into because you might see somebody taking fish out of a lake and putting them somewhere else. But I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like that's kind of like normal nowadays to like help
Right.
a fishery out. Um, but man, look, It's a little bit insane down here, man.
That's freaking funny, dude. But kind of rewinding, getting back to how you got into it and kind of where we're at now. So you get the Gantrell and stuff. Did you catch? So another kind of OG thing that I always talk about is the Gantrell can literally catch fish out of mud puddles, especially the junior. From how I fished it, were you catching fish on the Gantrell, or were you more so kind of being a glide bait guy at the time?
Oh no, it was I alternated between them all. Of course, during the summertime, I kind of lean more towards, or like spring and summertime, I lean more towards the Gantrel. Of course, rigging it in, different options with, like during the bluegill spawn, what I'd do is I'd add a small, like I want to say it was a 16th or an 8th ounce drop shot weight to the nose of
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And I'd kind of have it like just searching the beds,
Yep.
basically, just swimming like that. And I used to kill them on that all the time. And then if I was fishing if I was fishing like Norman, for example, I'd keep it just stock as possible. And what I do is I'd cast it alongside and this is typically like around this time of the year. Uh I'd cast it alongside of like floating docks and I'd burn it as quickly as possible and then stop it and then burn it again. And I'd watch like giant spots and largies come out on it and eat it. Majority of the time I caught like spots on it. The largies, I don't know, they were a little finicky up that way, but spots, man, they're aggressive. They used to eat it all the time.
Right. And I used to do something too with that, with the nose or with the nose weight. I would get a drop shot pencil weight and I would tie like a normal like fisherman's knot on the nose, and I'd leave a super long tag in, and then I'd tie it so there's like probably about an inch and a half of spare line between the weight and the knot that connects it to the chin, and that would make it so that bait would sit like nose down, like it was like looking around. And dude, I would fish that around bluegill beds, or I'd fish it super deep. So there's a section of docks that I fish on or around, and it's like 20 foot deep, and I would bomb the cast parallel, and I would sink that thing down, and I would just kind of like hop it like a jig. And like I'd hop it like a jig, I'd burn it kind of for a second, like you'd say, and then I'd let it sit there, kind of start to walk it back. Dude, I caught so many freaking fish like that. It was absolutely insane. Like literally, I would say that I probably caught 100 fish doing that one summer in this one particular spot on this not so huge lake.
Dude, I like no one talks about the gantro no more. And it's like we used to have a whole bunch of people that used to come into work. They're like, "Hey, got any gantros? Can I get a gantro?" Yes, I'm gonna get three of those gantros. Now it's like no one talks about it. And we had a whole bunch of them, but like we ended up clearancing them out. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy these. And the day that I went to go buy them, they were like, yeah, a dude came in and bought like all seven of them.
Damn.
And I was like, do you know who it was? And they told me, and I was like, oh yeah, never mind. I know exactly who that is.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's such a great bait, and it's like you said, I've talked about it before, how it's just so. It seems like once guys get to a certain point, like kind of a point like where you and I are, we just totally throw the beginner, the quote unquote beginner baits like just out the window. Like, dude, I caught a gajillion fish on the Gantrel, and for some reason, I don't even own one. Like, I could not tell you whatever happened to my other one, but to the point, I don't own one right now for some reason, and that is a bait I know that I would can and would still pick up and probably have a really hard time setting down on some days.
Dude, I same here, man. Like I think I traded my Gantro Junior and my Gigantro 2 years ago, and I think I traded it for a TK, and I don't even have that TK no more. And now I'm sitting here like, man, I really wish I would have just kept those two Gantros.
Yeah, dude, I never fished the big one, but I really wanted to. But I know that thing is like pretty massive. It's like 8 inches and it's super tall or something crazy like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's almost like the bull shooter, man. Like the bull shooter and the Gantro just have like this very tall like presentation, and I'm
Presence,
just like,
yeah.
Like it's just like, dude, I don't. It's gonna be impossible for a fish to really try to eat this the way you need them to set the hook on that fish.
Yeah, yeah, dude. It's like one of those baits that you get lucky if you hook a fish on it, I feel like same with that even that like super big UFO bait, like those fish have to really want to kill that thing to get the hooks like perfect.
Oh, you talking about the what is it, the executioner
The
or the
mothership.
oh the mothership? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know how big it actually is, but I know it's a pretty tall bait. And so I think those baits, like, dude, don't get me wrong, I love a gill bait, like the flea shad wake walker, that style bait, like super
Oh,
fun
I
bait. But I
love
feel
them.
like once you get a bait that's super tall, there's just a fish is gonna try to hit it and it's gonna knock that bait sideways and like more times than not knock it hooks, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. But anyway, so you get the like crazy thing is that you kind of shuffle through these beginner baits that you had at the time and stuff, which is honestly crazy. I feel like I never hear that guys stick with one thing and then they never pick up a glide bait because they're used to crank downs or vice versa. What was like, do you remember your first like quote like production or custom bait, like your first garage bait? Do you remember that and kind of how you got it and how you even heard about it? Because at the time, it doesn't sound like you were, on Facebook or Instagram like doing deep dives into the swim bait scene just yet.
Like my first like my first true garage bait uh was the I want to say it was the Sly Guy replica trout. Um
Damn, that's a big one to start with.
yeah, and I ended up I think I how did I get that thing? I bought it off of a matter of fact, I this was when I was going on this huge like buying spree and trading and selling
Yep,
just to kind
yep,
of get a little bit of everything to the
yep.
point where like PayPal completely banned me. And I was like, are you serious? Like I have like basically all of the transactions throughout like Messenger from whenever I finally got on the Swimbait universe and stuff. Like don't ban me. Like this is the only way that I can get stuff. So I started freaking out and I was like, I'm never going to be able to get baits ever again. Um, but I ended up I bought like a lot for like $200 and it came with a whole bunch of different things. And
Mm.
I tried them like and I was like, I don't like any of these. So I ended up selling them like I ended up selling them for like dirt cheap, and I think I ended up gaining back like maybe like $100 or so. And I took that and added like $40, and I bought this Sly Guy trout, if I'm not mistaken. It's either I bought it or I traded it. I mean, it was like 3 years ago. Um, and that was like my first garage bait, and I've held on to it, and I still have it to this day. And then one day my buddies were like, "Hey, let's go check out this pond." And I was like, "Okay, what are we doing?" They were like, "We're probably throwing swim baits. The water looks clear." Cool. I think my biggest swim bait fish right now is 824 on that Sly Guy trout.
Dang.
And I like my buddies are always like, trade me that Sly Guy trout. Trade me that Sly Guy trout. I'm like, I cannot do that. I haven't caught a fish bigger than 824 on anything yet besides that Sly Guy trout. That is like my first garage bait. That is like my first like confidence bait that I've ever purchased for that amount of money. And I was like, I just can't let that go.
Dang, dude. It's crazy that you still have like your first acquired custom bait. I don't even know. I've told the story once, but the only reason I got into swim baits and I like ever got baits is because I wrote this kid from California a school like essay about of mice and men. I wrote this whole story or whole paper for him, and he sent me some baits. It was like a knockoff bull shad style bait, and then some other freaking bait. And I caught like one or two. It was a shine glide. That's what it was, a shine glide and like a knockoff bull shad, like a big
Oh
chunky eel
yeah.
or a big chunky resin bait. And I caught like two fish on it, and then I did the same exact thing you did, and I just went crazy buying all sorts of stuff that I had no sense of mind buying at the time.
Yeah, like I've slowly kind of like I've been trading baits out here and there now. Um Recently I've been kind of getting what I really wanted. And baits that like certain like bluegill profile baits. I don't really have a lot of them besides like of course like the flea shads and stuff like that and the wake walkers. But when it actually comes to like looking exactly like a bluegill, I didn't really have anything. So now I've been on a quest to find things like that. So I just acquired a trashy gill wake, and now I'm trying to get this scaled phony gill off one of my buddies that throws swim baits down here in the Carolinas right now. So I gotta wait till Saturday for him to swing by.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that I mean the gill, that's another thing. Like guys are either like super partial to the gill baits or super partial to the trout baits. It doesn't seem like you mentioned earlier, like guys, I mean there are guys who switch it up and stuff, but it's like, oh dude, I live or die by the gill or by the trout bait, whatever style bait it may be. That trashy or yeah, you said trashy, right? The trashy gill wake you got?
Yeah, the trashy gill wake.
Yeah, I bet you catch some fish on that thing. It's pretty cool bait. But yeah, there's a lot of freaking good gill baits in my opinion. There's just the thing is, I think there's so many that it's hard to like kind of touch all the bases with every single one because there are so many, and essentially a gill is a gill. It's more so the swim that you don't necessarily get to see unless you buy it that kind of sets them all apart. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean that's kind of what I was going through, you know. I mean, like just having something that looks like a gill to like the T shape, color and all. I didn't have anything. I have shad profiles. I have, the crappies. I have the trouts. I have a little of everything,
Yeah.
But that was just like one bait that I was just like missing.
You
And now
might
that,
Oh, I
uh,
was just gonna say you might really like that BC gill. That's kind of a cool gill bait.
be- you know what's crazy? And to this day, I feel bad because I was talking to BC
Uh-huh.
whenever he was first getting big. And, I told him I was going to buy one of his baits. I was going to buy one of his baits. But like I said, life happens.
Yep. Yeah.
And, I never got a chance to because I wanted to buy like some of his for earlier model ones. This is whenever I think he was selling them for like 85, maybe $100.
Yeah. This was
And
like
like,
a long time ago. Him and Kyle from Throwback started at the same time, and then he stopped building baits for quite a while. And so while
yeah.
he stopped, Kyle just kept growing, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to
Oh, no,
elaborate
you're
on what you
good.
were saying.
Oh yeah, man. Like, and I really sit back and I'm like, dang, man, I feel really bad that, I sat here through from the time that like he started back up doing everything and kind of growing to what he's doing now. It's completely insane, and I felt so bad because like I really wanted one of those gill baits. Like I had the Sly Guy gill, and it just wasn't my favorite. And then I seen his gill, and I was like, I need that.
Mm.
And when I found when I think I stumbled across him through TikTok one day, and I think that's how I found him. It was either TikTok or Instagram. But dude, he's doing great. He's doing really good things, man. He's got some pretty sick baits. Um, like I said, I just feel bad that I was never able to actually like sit there and support him like I really wanted to and be able to have one of his baits in my hand.
Right. Yeah, dude. And like I said, that's the other thing that there's just like so many freaking builders out there now that it's like you not that you have to pick and choose, but it's like hard to decide or come to the conclusion of who you're going to support at the time. Like, oh, dude, I just got my paycheck. Like you said, I paid all my adult bills. Now I've got an extra, $110 sitting aside that I can buy a bait for. I got all my money in my savings or whatever it may be, and that's what I've set aside. Like, what the heck
Yeah.
do I buy and how the heck do I decide like where or what to buy? Like how do I figure out what this money is going towards? And that's the only thing I don't necessarily like is that the baits do cost a lot and it's you kind of know everybody's putting everything in to make these baits and it's like dude I can only unfortunately buy like one bait every 2 or 3 weeks and it's just like man like I talk to the like you may talk to a guy every single day and you may only have one of his baits and it's like oh dude I feel so bad because I only have one of your baits like I wish I could have so much more but that's just not always the case unfortunately.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean that's kind of where like, I kind of lean more towards, the throwback side of things. But,
Hmm.
whenever that time will come to talk about that, we'll talk about that for sure. But yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's hard, man. Like there's so many brands out there, so many bait makers
Yeah.
that, some of them are a lot of the baits that they make, like, yeah, some of them may have the quote unquote same action, but I don't want to say that because some people may take offense to that. Like,
Right.
no, I've spent years perfecting this bait out to not look or swim like, and I'm sorry, but there's some baits out there that, that do. Now, the only thing different is the shaping of them.
Hmm.
Some drag through the water a little bit more, some don't. And there's a time and place for each one.
Right, yeah, 100%. And even like some like it comes down to like the bill like wideness or the shape of it like and even the angle like sometimes somebody may have a bait that's like that generic like three-piece wake bait kind of like the wake walker and theirs will dive down 4 feet and you're like, well, I don't if I want it to dive, I only want it to go like a foot, so I kind of should lean towards the wake walker or maybe the trashy waker,
Yeah.
whatever else it may be. Like there's just so many options that go into it too, and that's really like that's why I do the Wednesday videos because I try to just do like quick overviews so somebody can be the watch a video and be like, okay, this was a bait that I was like interested in getting, but it does this, which I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, so maybe I'll opt into a different one or whatever it may be. Like that's kind of why I do that so guys don't have to buy baits and then try to trade stuff away right away because they don't like the swim of it or whatever it could be.
You know, and I think honestly that's a fantastic idea that you did that because I think that one, yes, that saves people a lot of money and a lot of time for trying to decipher out which ones they will want,
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's yeah, that right there, that was a great idea, and I like seeing those.
Heck yeah, dude, I
I will
appreciate
say
it.
that, man. Of course, man.
There was something I was going to ask you about the did you ever fish any of your tournaments while you were like in or getting into swim baits or no?
Yeah, actually, I did. So I think my first time throwing swim baits in a tournament, even though I've been throwing swim baits for 3 years now, my first time throwing swim baits in a tournament was in April of last year, my last tournament at Lake Norman.
Mm,
All three of my fish that I caught during that tournament, before my pedal drive and everything started
yeah.
acting up, I caught three fish on a hyper shad actually
Damn.
before, and then I lost my hyper shad to a
Oh,
hybrid.
damn it. Yeah, I liked where that was going there for a little while.
Yeah, I saw a giant flash of like a silverish gold, and then I was like, "What was that? A bass?" And then it came back again, and I was like, "Oh, that was not a bass." And then I felt free line, and I was like, "Oh, well, there goes my hyper shad." And I think I was so mad, dude. I said some things that I probably shouldn't have said on that on that lake, and it sucks because there was people sitting on the dock watching me, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine."
Okay.
Just,
Unfortunately, I'm
just
okay.
at least, but I caught three fish. I definitely did catch three fish out there on that.
Dang, that is super cool to hear. I guess when you did that, were you expecting to go out and fish those all day and kind of just see what it was like? Like, did you kind of know that, your tournament days were kind of winding down for the time being, and you're like, I'm just going to incorporate this new thing that I'm doing with what I had been doing for the last couple of years and see where it goes?
Yeah, that was kind of my thing. Like I said, talking to Alex and talking to York and they were telling me like, hey man, like you need to. This is something that you need to try. I know you like to fish around because I'm a dog fisherman, man. I love skipping docks with jigs. Like if I'm not throwing a swim bait, I'm skipping jigs on the docks all day.
Hmm.
Um, and they were like, hey, like you got these swim baits now. You need to go try to do some things with them. Like we're catching them out here on them. You just got to find the spots where you need to do so.
Right.
Um, so they told me a few spots that I needed to check out. So practice. I got to practice one day before the tournament because I had to buy a new truck. Um, and I had already paid for that tournament. So being that I already paid for that tournament, and then now I'm having to buy a truck, I was like, cool. I only have one day to practice. Well, that one day of practice, I looked at a few spots that they told me, and then I went and checked out a few other ones. And I figured out a pattern that I needed to have. Uh, but the crazy thing is beginning of like when the tournament started, the conditions that I needed were not present.
Oh, damn it,
So
dude.
I'm sitting here like dead calm, like I mean it's glass out. There's
Hmm.
not a lick of wind, and I'm like, this is not good. And then when the wind finally starts to pick up, it's blowing in a whole wrong direction.
Oh.
And so I think I caught once once it got closer to like the last like 4 hours of the tournament, the wind just decided it suddenly just flipped and it started like blowing. And I was like, thank God. And so I went and I started fishing down the stretch. And I want to say within like 15 to 20 feet of that point that I was fishing, I
Hmm.
caught three back to back. And I
Dang.
was like, cool. And then I went to go try another spot that I found that looked relatively the same, but it was on the backside of it was on the backside of an island out there. Uh I found a nice little it was nice actually, it was a nice like clay point that had stumps, but then at the bottom of the stumps or on the bottom of the point, it kind of like turned into like pea gravel almost, which was extremely weird. Never seen anything like it. It was a
Yeah. Okay, we're back. My computer ran out of space, so I had to hurry up and delete some stuff. But Hunter, you're talking about this like crazy transition you found this was the bank you banged all three of those fish off of?
well, no, this is a different bank. This is where I had
Oh,
lost the
okay.
hyper at. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
before before I lost the hyper though, I pulled up. I want to say I had to pull up at least like 4 or 5 spots that were well over like 2.5 to maybe like 3.5 pounds a piece.
Dang.
And it was like they came up, they seen me, they disappeared. And when I went to go, continue to cast around, that's when that hybrid came and snatched the hybrid or the hyper
Mhm.
from me.
Yeah. Damn it. Was it big? Did it look big?
Dude, that thing had to be at least every bit of like 8 to 10 pounds.
Wow.
It was massive when it came out on the hyper. Because the
Yeah.
water at Norman, if you don't know, is like it can get crystal clear in like certain depths. You can, in certain areas, it can be like extremely clear.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
right.
we're not used to that. So, 5 to like 10 foot of visibility is like money. But I
Right.
could see that fish clear as day in that spot that I was at.
Did it break at the knot, or was there just like a cut in your lines, a nick in your line somewhere?
I think it just like I honestly think it kind of like when it swiped at it and like the gill plates on it cut it.
Mm, yeah, that would
And
make sense.
I think that's the only thing that I can think of
Damn,
because it wasn't like when I went to swing into it, it was just like free. Like
yeah,
there was nothing there.
right, right. Was that your first expensive swim bait loss, like literal bait loss?
Um, no. My
No.
well maybe. Actually no, it wasn't. Nope. My first expensive swim bait loss was Oh man, I remember this day perfectly,
Oh
man.
no.
I mean, the the weather was perfect. There was a slight breeze blowing like 2 to 4 miles per hour out of the west. Uh it was overcast, but it was like 75 degrees and it was like a nice spring morning, man. It was perfect. And I'm fishing some isolated grass and I'm tossing and I had just watched the video where Marshall, I think there was a video with Marshall where he was talking about how he's throwing his swim baits on like I think he said like 15 or 17 or something like that or
Mhm.
18.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna try that out. Not realizing that the rods that he's using is a little bit better than the rods that I'm using and is actually meant for that. His rods are a little bit more parabolic than
Yeah.
mine.
Yep.
Mine is kind of like a pool cue to a certain extent. Well, I lost. This was my first KGB crappie that I
Oh no.
purchased. I had purchased the Gathering 5 color, which they don't make no more. And
Dang.
I was using forward facing sonar to pull some fish off of this isolated piece of grass, and she came at it like a freight train. And by the time the bait was like 10 feet in front of me, I can see the bait, and she completely. You ever seen the videos of where like the giant trevallies are like eating the birds out of like the water, like out of the
Yeah.
air?
Yeah, just going crazy.
She she completely like my bait is like subsurface, and she comes in like dolphins, almost dolphins on it. And as soon as I see her engulf it, like this fish had to have been over 8 because the whole crappie disappeared in her mouth when she shut.
Oh my God.
And I swung and like I had her, and next thing you know, it just sounded like a 22, and it was just like pop,
Damn, dude.
and I was like, "Oh, there's no way," because I had literally just got it maybe like 2 weeks beforehand,
Hmm.
and I was sick to my stomach, dude. Oh man, I didn't want to fish for the rest of the day because like I knew for a fact that that bait was like the bait.
Yeah, curl up in the bottom of the boat and just be done for the day.
Oh yes, definitely. Definitely. I literally just I sat in my kayak and just let the wind drift me to the bank. And I sat there for about like 30 minutes or so.
Ah, dude, that's so
And then
brutal.
I called my buddy and I was like, dude, you won't believe what just happened. I just lost my crappie.
Ah, dude,
He was
that's
like, did you break it off? Like cast it off? I was like, no, I lost it to a fish. And I wish I still had that SD card from when I had lost it so I can send you the video.
hmm
But the SD card is currently sitting in my old truck in Cary in the dash. It shot out of my camera into the dash and I couldn't get it.
Damn it. Oh man. You mentioned the throwback stuff earlier. So when did you find, and kind of wrapping it up here a little bit, but when did you find throwback baits? How did you find them? Like, I'm assuming through Instagram or through Marshall, but like, what was your first experience with throwback stuff?
So like yeah, like I watched a few of Marshall's videos. But I made a post on Swimbait Universe, like, hey, it's my birthday. I'm looking to buy some swim baits. And then next thing you know, Kyle shoots me a message and he's like, hey buddy, send me your address and I got something for you. And I was like, who is this? And I just started doing some research and I'm like, oh snap, this is Kyle, like the guy from Throwbacks right now,
Yeah.
sending me my like a bait for my birthday. And I was ecstatic. Like when as soon as I got it, I was happy. I was telling him thank you. And it took me a while to throw it because I didn't really know. Like I wasn't really into wakes like that
Hmm.
at the time. I was really just into like glides, like of course, like I said, my Sly Guy trouts, uh, my KGB crappie, my 9 inch draws from 6 cents, which is an underrated bait, I promise you. But yeah, and you know, I think it took me a year after having it. It was the middle of the summer, and my buddy took me to a spot that had nothing but lily pads. And I think this video is on my Instagram or like on my TikTok, one of the two. And like I throw it along this lily pad line, and I'm just waking it, and this giant comes up and just slurps it. And from then on, I was like, I was hooked. And then I started thinking, and I was like, I need to take this exact same bait to one of my fisheries
Hmm.
where I know there's giant fish that eat glides there, but I've never thrown like a wake bait or, a big top water.
Right.
And then I finally did that, and dude, it was insane. It was like the moment that the bait hit the water, they were eating it. If I got it snagged in a tree, popped it out of a tree, and it hit the water, they were blowing up on it. If I was just reeling it down like basically like vertically casting like the
Hmm.
bank, I'd get absolutely crushed. And I was like, this is like my confident bait. Like if there's or like company, if there's any bait that I can buy from this company that I know will get bait, it's the wake walkers and the flea shads.
Yeah.
So I started buying a whole bunch of them, started putting them to work. And then he sent me a little baddie.
Mm-hmm.
And my first day using that thing, I mean, it was a black little baddie. Now it's black and white completely. And then I bought the retro when they came out, the spawny crappy one. And I got that hung up in the tree, and I popped it out, and a fish blew up on it. And the fish, I literally have the fish and the bait still on a tree branch. So I had to get out of the boat to get the fish and everything. Oh, it was insane, dude. But that's kind of like how I like got into throwbacks, and honestly stuck with that company because that's a very memorable thing, for someone from like the an owner or but yeah, basically like the owner and the man himself who started everything
Hmm.
to go out of his way to send you a bait for free,
Right. Yeah, for
and
sure.
it be a bait that you have the most confidence in. um and Kyle and them, I mean, they're amazing. They're amazing people, man. If I ever have questions, I can always reach out to him or Marshall whenever he has time as well, and get some information. And then I reached out to Kyle not too long ago, to become a bait tester for him. And I gave him, full respect for allowing me to be that. And I told him that, I won't let him down. I won't, backstab him or ghost him or anything.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sitting here to this day trying to put some stuff into play. It's the weather conditions aren't playing out too fine right now, but every day that I go out, I'm I'm playing around with some stuff, trying to figure out how to get these fish to react to these baits.
Yeah, dude. I was gonna say you have the soft bait, don't you? Or you have a variant of the soft bait,
I have a few variants. Yeah.
and you caught a bowfin on the one, didn't you?
Yes.
Dude, so sick. It was roundabout perfect, dude. We could end the episode right here. Perfect full circle moment. We started off with a second with the icebreaker bowfin, and now we're talking about this gosh darn fish. But dude, that picture is hard. You holding the bowfin with the tail sticking out of the thing. Oh my gosh, it's so sick.
And I mean, dude, when I tell you a thump from hell, I mean, I've never caught a bowfin on, any form of swim bait.
Hmm.
But that right there, dude, was insane. Completely unexpected. I was really just going around just casting it because I wasn't catching bowfin on a Nico rig and stuff like that or a jig at the time. So I was just like, screw it, I'm just, play around with that. And a few casts later, it was just like I mean, it felt like somebody smacked the tip of my rod.
Yeah, yeah, just like twang all the way down.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, that's such a great feeling. I love that feeling because guys, I know what it is on the other end.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I just absolutely. I mean, dude, to catch it on a soft bait on the throwback soft bait is super badass. But I mean, you've never caught him on like a citizen or anything on accident either.
No, like never. Like I've caught yeah, like I've caught bass on the Citizen,
Yeah,
and but I've caught like gar on like glides,
that's
but
crazy.
never like a bowfin or anything like that. And I know we have an abundance of them in certain places that I fish, but I've just never came across any like that
Dang.
until that day.
Yeah, dang, that's so wild. That's insane. Did you were you scared it was gonna break you off like once you realized what it was?
Yes and no. But I started some people may call me crazy, but I started throwing a lot of my swim baits and glide baits. I started throwing the what is it? The Daiwa, I think it's the Daiwa J Fluoro or the
Mm.
Daiwa Samurai Fluoro or something
Yeah,
like that. It's like $40 or something like that.
yep.
And I started throwing that on 20. I started throwing 22 on majority of everything because I have a fear of losing baits or from a cast or from a fish. So I started doing that. And I was worried at one point, but I was like, wait, no, this is 22 pounds. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
But I mean, it took a minute.
Right, right. I really like that, like that 22 pound. Like, I don't know. I'll be honest. I think 20 is a lot, but for some reason, 22 has a very fitting sound in my head where I'm like, yeah, I could fish 22 pound and probably feel very confident and not feel like it's super thick line.
Oh yeah, and see, like the I've ventured off more into like the more JDM stuff, like when it comes to like lines, because like I've started looking at the more like the diameters of the JDM market versus the United States market. It's like 22-pound fluoro for JDM is like almost like 18 to 20
Yeah.
in American. I'm like, there's no difference at all, really.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely it is.
It's insane, dude. Speaking of your line, what are the rods you're fishing with? We talked about it a little bit earlier, but we never really like completely touched on it. But like what are the setups you're fishing just like maybe two of your setups that you're fishing right now. What are they?
So well, I only have two swim bait setups now. Um, One of them is the 6 cents response, 710 extra heavy with a Daiwa Zillion on it. And then the other one is which one was that one? Oh, it's a 6 cents uh
Oh, that MF
Milliken
for
series
swim bait
rod.
rod.
Yeah, they're 7.9 like extra heavy, which is yeah, and that's like my big bait softy rods. Um, and I have that paired with a Tranks 200. I'm not really like a big gearhead, really. Like I want to dabble in on on some of that stuff, but I also have I have a criteria that I have to make. So of course, it's not really a gray area, but I also have stuff business stuff that I do have to uphold on my end.
Yeah, 100%,
So,
dude.
I'm not really a huge gearhead when it comes to my swim bait stuff now. Um at one point in time, I was fishing the Shimano X Pride swim bait rod. They're 8 foot extra heavy and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then the G Loomis GLX 7.5 extra heavy, which was like my like wake bait rod and small like the bull shad swimmer,
Yeah.
the wake walker, the flea shad and stuff like that. At one point in time, I was a gearhead, and that's all I was fishing my big baits on. And then I got an opportunity of a lifetime to be partnered up with Team Six and Waterland. So I was willing to make sacrifices, and all I can say is that those two rods I have yet to like really like lose fish when like those fish are actually hooked and pinned.
Hmm.
as opposed to like, of course, losing fish because they're like side swiping it or so, or just T-boning it. But I have yet to have any faults in those rods when actually fighting a fish and getting it in. So
Yeah.
those are for the money. If anyone's looking for like some swim bait rods for a well decent price, those are definitely some to definitely take a look at for sure.
I know guys really like that Milliken rod. I've never actually felt one, but I like the way they look, and I have never really heard anything bad. It always seems like a lot of guys really like them.
Oh, dude, they're phenomenal, man. I love it. Like I said, it handled that both in well. Um, that's also the rod that I was using when I was using it today actually to play around with a few different baits.
Hmm.
And it's like it's short enough to where like now that I have it, I can actually work on uh a little bit more like close quarter combats whenever I'm fishing my favorite swim bait fishery
Yeah.
because I'm fishing a lot of lay downs, a lot of overhangs. So it's perfect in length so like I can pitch and like kind of almost skip some of my baits underneath these lay downs and sometimes even dock depending on where I'm at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You guys don't have zebra mussels down there, do you?
Uh I think we
Maybe Norman
I
has
think
them.
we
Some spots
I think we
probably
do
have
have
them.
some. I think we do have some. I think we have some at like Jordan Lake, and I think Norman may have some, but I know we do have some at Jordan Lake because I remember seeing them on the bank one time, and we started playing around with them, and like we'll pick one up and we'll go drop it off in a whole different spot of the lake.
And then the next year there's a gajillion there.
Yeah, not realizing what we were doing.
Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering. I was wondering if you'd ever had like a bad experience with that. But the other thing I was gonna ask you is, what are you like? So I like, scrolling through your page, there's a couple different like things that you fish out of and stuff. Like one being that bass raider. What's like your if you're going out fishing tomorrow? What are you taking? Do you have a kayak or kind of what's your boating setup?
So at one, so, I started off with kayaks, of course,
Yeah.
um, and then I ended up selling the kayak and buying like the little bass hunter, and then I also purchased a paddleboard, and then me and Alex did a trade, and he gave me a paddleboard too. And so now, like my main vessels that I'm fishing out of is that bass hunter and that paddleboard. So if I was to go out tomorrow, uh, of course I'm on a bass hunter, but from the moment that the water hits 60 degrees and up, I'm on that paddleboard for now on.
Right, yeah. Dude, those little bass raiders are pretty badass. You throw a little trolling motor on it and you can just boot, scoot, and boogie wherever you want to go in one of those things. The only thing is that they are really hard to load up and unload if you're fishing by yourself. That's the one downside with them.
Oh, definitely. That's why I got to make sure I stay in shape, man. I always
Yeah.
got to stay lifting some weight so I can be able to lift up that thing because that thing is a pain.
Yeah, dude, our Phoenix used to fish out of one and he would manhandle that thing on top of his Forerunner and stuff by himself. And I'm like, dude, you're gonna throw your back out one day fishing with that thing. And he's like, yeah, I know, but it's just so nice and it's so worth it. I was like, yeah, I'm sure it is. I guarantee. I know that it's nice to be in a like a vessel like that, be able to be on your phone and not worry about it falling off your board if you hook into a fish or something.
Oh yeah, dude. That was like I've already lost like two phones off the kayak already before.
Oh my gosh,
Now
that's so brutal.
I don't have to. I almost lost a phone today. On my buddy's center console, and I was like, Jesus Christ, dude. I gotta stop putting my phone in like my jacket pocket whenever I'm like fishing because I'm gonna lose this phone too.
No, dude, that's so brutal, man. But Hunter, dude, where can people follow? Oh my gosh, excuse me. Sorry, my nose has been super stuffy for like the last 12 episodes you guys have listened to. Super sorry about that. But Hunter,
Dude,
where
it's
can people
okay.
follow you if they're not doing that already?
Instagram, you can find me there at HA Hernandez Fishing. Um, TikTok, you can find me there at Natty Days, NATTYDAZEEE. Um, and then of course, I'm not really on Facebook much, but of course my posts and stuff, you know, from Instagram or post it there. But my main two platforms are Instagram and TikTok. So that's where they can find me. My YouTube, I have one. It is in my Instagram. Uh, I don't really post a lot of videos because recording is hard. But
Hmm.
if they're willing to, check out some videos of swim bait catches and stuff like that, that's where they can check that too, as well as in my bio.
Heck yeah, dude. There was something else I was gonna ask you. Oh, anybody or any brand, or do you have like a Sixth Sense code or anything through them that you wanna promote? I don't know if I didn't know if you had one or not, but I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, I do have one. You know, I, my code for uh Six Sense is oof. It's been a minute since I've had to honestly, say something about that. They
Had
don't
to
it's
recite it like that, put you on the spot.
yeah, they typically don't really like ask me for to really like say anything about it. But for uh Six Sense, it's Daze, DAZE, for 10%, and then 15% through Waterland. So if they want to grab one of those rods, or even like the a bad little bait that I like now from them, because I've wanted a bigger swim, like a serpentine style bait from them. They're 7-inch trace. If y'all want a swim bait that like swims relatively close to like the Gantrel or the bull swimmers or so like that, they can give that a try. But yeah, use code DAYS at Six Cents in Waterland to save you a little bit of money, man.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah, man. Well, dude, I don't even know how long we recorded for, but all I know is the people will know who you are now. They can listen to this episode and be like, dang, like, this guy went from tournament fishing to now he's a swim bait guy. And now he's kind of like dipping his toes back into the conventional side of things. That's something that we do not hear very often. And dude, I appreciate you coming on. I mean, dude, I shot you a message earlier in the week and you're like, yeah, dude, I'm free Thursday. I'm like, yeah, we're recording Thursday then. That works for me, man. So I really appreciate it, dude.
No, I appreciate it, man. I really do. It's not every day where, you get something like this to, to happen. And, like I said, I can't thank anybody but, of course, God himself for, offers like this or opportunities like this, as well as, my family for, of course, keeping me in my right, keeping me in the right track, and
Yeah.
always having, faith, and always supporting me, as well as my wife. She's done some stuff for me too as well. We're doing good. But all of this wouldn't have happened for if it wasn't for my granddad, and that's
Yeah.
like I said earlier, this is who I do it for. That's who I do it for the most.
Yeah, for sure, dude. And that's so awesome to hear because I mean, just to hear that he was kind of the one that got you kind of really, really started into it and stuff, and now here you are getting to do it, get or continue to still do it and kind of give it all back to him, dude. That's so awesome to hear.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Heck yeah, man. Well, as always, guys, I'll put all Hunter stuff in the show notes. You guys can go follow him if you're not doing that already. As always, make sure you're following the podcast, Scales and Tails Media, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and maybe another place I can't remember off the top of my head. But again, make sure you guys follow Hunter. Like I said, I'll link all the stuff in the show notes. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh my gosh, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one. We'll see you guys.